Listen to me, the reason so many people never get to the next level is because you keep settling for average. You keep living down here when everything in you was designed to live up here. You were not created to be ordinary. You were not born to blend in. You were built to stand out, to dominate, to set the standard. But the problem is, you've gotten comfortable living with mediocrity. And I need you to hear me clearly. Average is crowded. Everybody wants to be average. Everybody wants the easy way. Everybody wants to fit in, to do just enough to get by. But the few, the rare, the chosen, they don't live by average. They set the standard. You wake up every day, and the first thing you gotta ask yourself is this: am I living to meet somebody else's expectations, or am I living to set the bar so high that when they talk about me, they can't ignore me? Because I'm telling you right now, average never gets remembered. Nobody writes history about the average. Nobody builds statues for the average. Nobody brags about how ordinary somebody was. The world only respects those who set the standard. And the truth is, some of you have been living beneath your potential for way too long. You're sitting on gifts, on talents, on skills that could change your life, change your family, change your community. But you're wasting it because you keep settling. You let other people's comfort zone become your ceiling. You let their laziness dictate your effort. You let their excuses become your reality. I came to tell you, stop letting average people set the bar for your life. Just because they quit doesn't mean you quit. Just because they settle doesn't mean you settle. Just because they said it's impossible doesn't mean you stop chasing it. Their standard is not your standard. The reason you're not where you want to be is not because you don't have the talent. It's not because you don't have the ability. It's because you've accepted average as enough. And I need you to reject that with everything in you. Listen, if average pays the bills, then excellence builds wealth. If average gives you survival, then greatness gives you freedom. If average gets you a seat in the room, then setting the standard makes you own the room. And here's the truth: average will always feel safe. It will always feel comfortable. It will always give you the illusion that you're doing something. But it's a trap, because average never pushes you, never stretches you, never forces you to grow. And if you're not growing, you're dying. The minute you settle for average, you start shrinking your vision, shrinking your dream, shrinking your destiny. You weren't designed to shrink, you were designed to expand. I need you to stop comparing yourself to people who ain't even trying. You measuring yourself against somebody who doesn't even want what you want. You keep looking left and right to see what they doing. And you forgetting the only race that matters is the one in front of you. Stop asking, am I doing enough compared to them? And start asking, am I doing enough compared to the best version of me? Because when you settle for average, you start competing with mediocrity. But when you set the standard, you compete with greatness. You ever notice how people get mad when you raise your standard? They tell you, relax, slow down, you're doing too much. No, you're not doing too much, they're doing too little. They don't want you to raise the bar because it exposes the fact that they stopped climbing. Don't let their fear of work stop you from working. Don't let their lack of vision blur yours. Don't let their average become your normal. You got to make a decision right now. Are you going to keep living down here where it's safe? Or are you going to set the standard so high that people have no choice but to respect your grind? The world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you demand. And you don't demand it by talking about it. You demand it by setting the standard through action, through effort, through consistency. Every single day, you have an opportunity to prove that average is not your label. You don't need permission to be great. You don't need approval to raise the bar. The moment you decide that average is no longer acceptable, That's the moment your whole life begins to change. That's when people start to see you differently. That's when doors start to open. That's when opportunities start to chase you, not because you're lucky, but because you set the standard. So stop settling. Stop lowering the bar just so you can feel comfortable. Stop hiding behind excuses. Stop telling yourself it's okay to just get by. You were not made to just exist. You were made to excel. You were not made to follow. You were made to lead. You were not made to blend in. You were made to stand out. Average is the enemy, excellence is the expectation, and greatness is the standard. Listen, let me make this real clear. Your work ethic is your identity. Who you are is not defined by what you say, it's defined by what you do. You can talk about dreams, you can talk about goals, you can talk about what you want, but at the end of the day, when people look at you, when they hear your name, what do they connect it with? Do they see someone who's consistent, who's relentless, who's dependable? Or do they see somebody who talks a lot but never delivers? You gotta understand, when you set the standard, you don't set it with your mouth, you set it with your grind. People don't respect words, they respect results. Nobody follows talk, they follow proof, and proof comes from effort. You can't call yourself a lion if you don't hunt. You can't call yourself hungry if you don't eat what you chase. You can't call yourself a standard setter if your work doesn't back it up. I don't care how much talent you got. I don't care how much potential you got. I don't care how much people believe in you. If your work ethic doesn't match your words, your identity is weak. The only thing that separates the greats from the average isn't that they had better resources. It's that they worked like their life depended on it. Because it did. Let me tell you the truth. The world doesn't see your intentions. The world doesn't see your dreams. The world doesn't see your excuses. All the world sees is the product of your work, and that product becomes your name. When they say your name in a room, it either carries weight because your grind earned it, or it gets dismissed because your grind never showed up. Some of you walking around thinking you deserve respect just because you showed up. No, you don't get respect for showing up. You get respect for showing out. You get respect for bringing your best when everybody else is coasting. You get respect because your standard of effort makes people uncomfortable, makes people say, if I don't step up, I can't even be near this person. That's identity. I want you to think about the people you admire most, athletes, leaders, entrepreneurs, whoever it is. It ain't just their talent that impresses you, it's the way they outwork everybody else. That's why Kobe Bryant was Kobe. That's why Michael Jordan was Michael. That's why Serena is Serena. They didn't just rely on skill, they made their work ethic their brand. When you heard their name, you automatically thought beast, relentless standard. That's not an accident. That's intentional. That's identity built through grind. Some of you gotta stop lying to yourself. You keep telling yourself you're built for greatness, but your actions say you're comfortable with good enough. You keep telling people you're all about success, but your grind says you're about convenience. You keep saying you want to be the best, but your effort says you want to be average. Hear me, your work ethic is the loudest truth about you. It speaks louder than your Instagram captions. It speaks louder than your promises. It speaks louder than your dreams. You want to know what people really think of you. Look at your habits. Look at your consistency. Look at the trail of effort you leave behind. If somebody followed you for a week, no filters, no highlights, just raw everyday grind, would they see a person who sets the standard? Or would they see somebody who settles when it gets hard, who does the minimum to get by, who wants the crown but won't carry the cross? Stop thinking reputation is built in one moment. Reputation is built brick by brick, grind by grind, day by day. When you keep showing up, when you keep putting in the hours, when you keep going even when nobody's watching, that's when identity gets cemented. Because listen, consistency is credibility. If you're up one day and down the next, nobody can trust your name. But if you're the type that's always on, always giving, always pushing, then your name carries weight because your work ethic gave it value. You want people to remember you, then let your effort be unforgettable. You want doors to open, let your grind be undeniable. You want to set the standard, then let your work ethic speak so loud that you don't even need to introduce yourself. And understand this, work ethic isn't about hours alone, it's about excellence. Some of you put in time, but you don't put in effort. You show up, but you don't show out. You clock in, but you don't stand out. That's not work ethic, that's existence. Real work ethic says, every time I touch it, it's better because I was here. Every time I show up, I leave something behind. Every time I put my hands on it, it reflects my standard. That's identity. So the next time you wake up, don't ask yourself, what do I feel like doing today? Ask yourself, what identity am I building today? What standard am I reinforcing today? What legacy am I creating with my grind today? Because one day, when your name is mentioned, when your face is no longer in the room, the only thing left will be the story your work ethic wrote. Let your grind tell the world who you are. Listen, let me keep it real with you. Motivation is good, but it's not enough. Motivation gets you excited. Motivation gives you energy. Motivation might get you out of bed in the morning. But motivation will not keep you going when life knocks you flat. Motivation will not hold you when the pain shows up. Motivation will not push you through when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you've lost your way. Discipline will. That's why you can't just live off hype. You can't just live off emotion. Some of you waiting for that perfect video, that perfect speech, that perfect moment to light a fire under you. And yet it might spark you for a day, maybe a week, but what happens when the feeling fades? What happens when the music stops, when the crowd goes home, when nobody's clapping for you? If you don't have discipline, you quit. If you don't have discipline, you fall back to average. If you don't have discipline, you waste your whole life chasing moments instead of building momentum. Discipline means I don't care how I feel. I don't care what's going on around me. I don't care if I'm tired, if I'm angry, if I'm bored. I show up and I do what needs to be done. Because discipline isn't about feelings, it's about commitment. Discipline isn't about convenience, it's about consistency. Discipline says, I made a decision and I'm not backing out just because the mood left me. That's why discipline is greater than motivation. Motivation might get you started, but discipline keeps you finished. You think the champions of the world feel motivated every day. You think the greats wake up with energy every morning. No. There are days they don't feel it, days they want to quit, days they wonder if it's worth it, but they push through anyway. Why? Because discipline doesn't ask permission, it demands action. And let me tell you something. The difference between people who win and people who lose isn't that the winners felt like it more often. It's that the winners disciplined themselves to keep going when they didn't feel like it at all. They didn't let emotions dictate execution. They let standards dictate execution. They let discipline control their destiny. Some of you keep stopping every time the feeling leaves. You start the workout program, and the first week you're fired up. Then by week 2 you quit. You start the business, and the first month you're grinding. Then when the sales don't come fast enough, you quit. You start building the dream, and the first challenge comes, you run. That's because you're addicted to motivation instead of committed to discipline. I need you to stop asking yourself, do I feel like it? And start asking, did I do it? Feelings don't move mountains, action does. Feelings don't build legacies, habits do. Feelings don't create greatness, discipline does. You can't keep living on motivation because motivation is seasonal. It comes and it goes. It's like weather, one day sunny, the next day storming, but discipline is like climate. It sets the atmosphere. It doesn't matter what the weather is on the outside. Discipline controls the inside. Discipline says, I don't care what's going on. My standard doesn't change. And here's the crazy part. Once you start practicing discipline, motivation actually follows. You want to feel motivated. Start doing the thing. Start showing up. Start being consistent. Start putting in the work even when you don't feel it. That's when you start building momentum, and momentum creates its own motivation, but it only comes after discipline. That's why I tell people, stop chasing hype and start chasing habits, because habits are what shape your life. Discipline is just doing the habits that align with your goals over and over until they become who you are. And when you become that person, you don't need motivation because it's your identity now. It's not something you do, it's something you are. Think about it. If you discipline yourself to wake up early, to put in the hours, to eat right, to study, to work, to grind over time, that becomes you. And when it's you, you don't need to get pumped up every morning because discipline built a system that runs even when the feelings are gone. Some of you wonder why success feels so far away. It's because you're treating it like a mood instead of a lifestyle. You're treating it like a weekend event instead of a daily commitment. Hear me, success isn't about one big motivated day. It's about thousands of disciplined days stacked on top of each other. And don't get it twisted. Discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is freedom. Discipline frees you from regret. Discipline frees you from what if. Discipline frees you from being controlled by your feelings. When you have discipline, you control the day doesn't control you. When you have discipline, you own your time doesn't own you. When you have discipline, you become unstoppable because there's nothing life can throw at you that can take away your standard. So the next time you say you're waiting for motivation, stop. You don't need to wait for a feeling to tell you what you already know you need to do. You don't need permission from emotions to chase greatness. You need discipline, and discipline says, I don't wait to feel it. I choose to do it. Discipline is greater than motivation because motivation changes, but discipline sets the standard. Let me tell you something. The greatest mistake most people make is waiting for somebody else to push them. You keep waiting for a coach to tell you what to do. You keep waiting for a teacher to check on you. You keep waiting for your boss to hold you accountable. You keep waiting for friends and family to encourage you. And I'm here to tell you that's weakness, because as long as you're waiting on somebody else to demand greatness from you, you'll never reach the level you were designed for. Nobody can want it for you more than you want it for yourself. Nobody can hold you accountable more than you should hold yourself. Nobody should set the standard higher for you than you set for yourself. You gotta stop outsourcing your greatness. You gotta stop depending on other people to make you do what you already know you should be doing. If the only time you give your all is when somebody's watching, then you'll never be great. Greatness is about what you do when nobody sees, when nobody claps, when nobody checks on you. That's the difference between the average and the elite. Average needs a boss breathing down their neck. Average needs a reminder, a deadline, a threat. The elite don't need any of that. The elite wake up with the fire already inside. The elite don't wait for consequences, they create standards. The elite don't wait for permission, they demand more from themselves than anybody else could ever demand. And some of you, that's why you keep falling short. You keep letting people set the bar for you, and because they don't expect much, you don't give much. You're playing down to their expectations instead of playing up to your own potential. Stop letting other people's low bar define your ceiling. If they expect a C, you go get an A. If they expect you to show up late, you show up early. If they expect you to quit, you push through. If they expect you to fail, you succeed just to prove them wrong. You've got to raise the bar so high on yourself that when the world looks at you, they say, this person doesn't need supervision, they don't need reminders, they don't need motivation, they demand it from themselves. That's the standard you got alive at. You think the greats got to where they are because somebody was babysitting them. No, they held themselves to levels that nobody else could reach. They demanded more from themselves in practice than the game would ever require. That's why when the lights came on, they dominated. That's why when the pressure came, they didn't fold, because they had already pushed themselves past that level when nobody was watching. You gotta be so hard on yourself that the world feels easy. You gotta demand so much from yourself in the dark that when the spotlight hits, it's light work. You gotta push yourself beyond what anybody else would ask, because if you only rise to what others expect, you'll always stay stuck in their box. Hear me, discipline without self. Demand is empty. You can be disciplined, but if your standard is low, you're just consistently average. You gotta set the bar higher. You gotta demand excellence when average would do. You gotta demand consistency when quitting would be easy. You gotta demand character when compromise looks tempting. Because when you hold yourself to that level, life bends in your direction. Opportunities come your way. People respect you because they know your name means something. And don't get it twisted, demanding more from yourself doesn't mean being perfect. It means refusing to accept less than your best. It means saying, I don't care how tired I am, I don't care how many times I've failed, I don't care what's in front of me, I will not stop until I give everything I have. That's self-demand. That's the standard. Some of you right now are waiting for somebody else to give you a reason to go harder. You waiting for the coach to yell at you, the teacher to fail you, the boss to threaten you, life to hit you with pain. Why wait for the world to break you before you decide to build yourself? Why wait for the world to tell you what you're worth before you prove it with your grind? You don't need the world to push you. You don't need somebody to remind you. You don't need the applause. You need to demand it from yourself. When you demand more from yourself, you become unstoppable because nobody can take that from you. Coaches change. Teachers change, bosses change, seasons change. But when you are your own standard, when you are your own accountability partner, when you are your own driving force, you can't be stopped. So stop waiting for somebody else to call you out. Call yourself out. Stop waiting for somebody else to check your excuses. Check yourself. Stop waiting for somebody to tell you to raise your standard. Raise it yourself. You don't need permission to be great. You don't need approval to demand more. All you need is the decision to stop settling and start setting the bar higher than anybody else could set it for you. Because at the end of the day, greatness doesn't come from what they demand of you. It comes from what you demand of yourself.